States, Canada, and Tokyo, Japan. This is the Rich Stevens Radio Network.
Well, here we are on a Monday. Thanks for being here. I am Rich Stevens. I appreciate your continued support of the Rich Stevens Show. By the way, I just want to remind you, a lot of great stuff on my website, which is richstevenshow.com, R-I-C-H, Stevens with a V, Rich Stevens Show. And I don't know about you, I fell back on the weekend. Did you? I literally feel like I went into a coma yesterday. It was awful for me, as it's the same with every time change we go through. For the life of me, I still can't figure out why here in Florida, we voted to not change the time. And now, of course, Congress must make it law, but because Congress is involved with all these different fakakta, hearings, they don't have time for any real stuff like this. I mean, think about this for a moment. It passed unanimously on the ballot. I think it was in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. And here we are in 2019, 2 years later, and Congress isn't even close to doing this. I wish that the governor, Ron DeSantis, could just say, you know what, to hell with it, we're going to make the change ourselves and just get it over with. And now it's going to start getting dark earlier in the afternoon and light earlier in the morning. Totally screws with your, with your rhythms and your biological clocks. Is it biological? Is that what I'm trying to say? No matter what we go, if we go backwards or forwards. And I guess it didn't help yesterday because it was storming, raining all day. And, of course, the best time to sleep is in the rain. I mean, I got up and then had to lay back down because I felt like I was, it was like it wasn't worth the battle. So I finally gave in and laid back down. And then, of course, screwed up the rest of my day yesterday and found it very hard for me to wake up this morning. And this is what happens. You get in this madness cycle. And I know I'm not alone in, having issues with the time changes. And as I said, it happens when we fall ahead or when we go ahead and when we fall back. Same kind of thing. Doesn't matter which way we're going. It just screws with your, just screws with your body, or at least with my body. But I know several people I've talked to about this, and it screws with a lot of people. By the way, screwing. Speaking of screwing with other people, I was talking to a couple of friends of mine over the weekend. They asked me if I wanted to go on a cruise, and I said, there is no way I'm ever getting on a cruise ship. And they said, why? And I said, because, well, up until, this is probably around 1995, I had a terrible experience, first time ever having a bad experience on the water. And when I was growing up, and when I was, up until 1995, I never had a problem in going on a boat, even a small boat, out into the ocean. I mean, I used to love it as a kid, going out and fishing in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Never had a problem with it at all. But in 1990, and they say, by the way, it only takes one issue to have a lifetime totally screwed up. I mean, I don't remember who it was, but I remember my parents taking me to down in Manhattan to see somebody that was going on a cruise, to see them off. And you get to, I don't know if they still do this anymore, but you got to go on a ship before it left, obviously, and look around and have some food and yada, yada, yada. And I remember looking over the edge of the boat. Never had a problem with that at all. But then because of this experience that I had in 1995, so I was living and working in Daytona Beach, Florida. I was working for KISS FM. I was the program director there, actually, and I did the afternoon show. And we got invited, media gets invited to a lot of newsworthy events, but this one was very unusual, and I said, yes, I definitely want to go. And it was the United States Navy, I believe, if I remember correctly, that was going to sink a ship in the Atlantic Ocean to make a coral reef. And it just sounded great to me. So they had this boat that was a kind of like a, I don't know how to describe this. It wasn't a small vessel. It was pretty big. Probably held about 100, 150 people. So the media, and then, by the way, this was in October of 1995, and it happened just a few weeks, actually just a week after there was a hurricane that went through. I just remember that. All I knew is it was an exciting event to be a part of, and we were going to get to go very close and watch them blow up, literally with dynamite. you know what? Now that I think about it, it was 3 vessels that they were big, old ships. Not like ships, pirate ships, but, boats. And I remember as we were going out there, I started to feel a little bit queasy. And I don't know why, other than the water was really rough. And it's because a hurricane had just come through. It was either a week or a week before that. And again, I never had a problem with this before. I've gone on the waves. Now, this is a bigger boat. This is not a little boat. And then what happened is we actually dropped anchor probably, I guess, maybe 100 feet away from these boats that they were going to blow up. And then the boat was literally, the waves were really high. And the boat was, I'm getting nauseous thinking about this now. The boat itself was rocking back and forth. And there were some people, I remember there was somebody, a girl named Mindy that worked at the radio station with me. She came along too. She was the news girl. And they had these huge 6-foot sub sandwiches on board for everybody to eat. Now I'm sitting next to her and we're watching I think it was the Navy, rigging up these ships to blow them up. And in the water in front of us, there was, I don't know what you call the boats. It looks like the things that they have on the side of vessels. It was one of those, and the waves were going up and down and up and down. And it was really cool. That wasn't cool, but it was really cool because we saw some dolphins and we saw some flying fish. But my stomach and my head were just getting worse and worse because of the rocking on the ship. And I just remembered years ago, back in the, I guess it was the 80s, I had a waterbed. Same kind of thing with the waves. Never had a problem with it. That's a little bit not the same, but these were big. I would say probably between 7 and 12 foot waves. And we're sitting there, and we're sitting there an hour, and then we're sitting there 2 hours. And by the 3rd hour, the captain of the ship came around and asked people if they're ready to eat. They put out these sandwiches. There was no way I was eating because I was about to lose it. Anyway, Mindy, she gets two big pieces of this 6-foot sub, and she's eating it and laughing and joking, and she says, "What's the matter?" I said, "I don't know. I feel like I'm going to throw up." She says, "Well, you're better off going inside." And I went inside, and there were a ton of people. Well, actually, I shouldn't say a ton, because there was maybe 20, 30 people on board from the media. And the what was I saying? The captain's wife was saying to everybody, the best thing to do, they had these kind of like booth tables, with the bench and the table. The best thing to do is grab a bench on a booth and lay down. Because when you lay down, you'll be in the motion in a different way. I said, I would try anything at this point. Well, I did that, and it didn't work. Now, at this point, we're about 3 hours and 15 minutes into this whole fiasco, and I am ready to just lose my mind because my head, the boat was spinning around in my head. My stomach felt terrible. Now, I've never seen this woman in my life before. I've never done drugs or never been drunk, but this woman says, if it still bothers you, I can give you one of these pills. It'll just fix it right away. I took the pill from this woman who I've never met. I have no idea what it was, but that's how desperate I was to, fix this horrible, horrific feeling of being nauseous and seasick. At the same time that she's giving me that pill, people are coming inside from outside and throwing up all over the boat. I mean, literally just like all over the place. It was gross. As we sat there, more and more people are getting sick. And then this girl, Mindy, comes back in to get another half of the sub, or big chunk of the sub. And she's laughing. She said, "I can't believe you guys are all so sick." Well, there was probably about 15, 20 tables, these booths that I told you about, and everybody's laying down them because everybody's sick. I'll never forget that the guy, I think it was a videographer from CNN, because all the TV stations, the networks were on board too. And he was sick too. And then we got a countdown where it was 2 minutes to go. Finally, we were there almost 4 hours, and forget about it. That pill that the woman gave me didn't work at all. When I was looking outside, I was saying to myself that I would pay somebody $10,000 to fly in on a helicopter and just take me out of here. That's how bad it was. I would have more than willing to give up $10,000. It was bad. Anyway, long story short, they They finally blew up these 3 boats. And I remember the guy, and I'm almost sure it's the guy from CNN. He missed the shot of the boats being blown up. It was cool to watch the boats being blown up, but it wasn't cool, being sick at the same time. I managed to get up and watch. But as I said, this CNN photographer just missed it. He was so sick. People were very violently sick at this point, now that we were there more than 4 hours. So they blew them up. We watched the ships go down, the boats, whatever it was. And the captain comes on. He says, I understand a lot of people are sick. Please take it easy. We'll be out of this water very soon. But it was another 40 minutes to get back to dock. As we're pulling into the area which close to the dock, I finally started feeling better. So whatever that pill was, which I never questioned what it was, really made a difference. But here's another story. And so ever since then, I was scared to death of going out on the water. And it was about 2 months later, a friend of mine in Daytona had their own boat, kind of like a speedboat, thing. And they invited me out. And I said, yeah, let's go. I didn't think it was a big deal. But I was, oh my God, I was just so anxious being on that boat and just couldn't wait to get back on land. And again, I never had a problem with this before. Now, fast forward to 1997. I was living in St. Louis. I was on the radio there at Z1077. And we were interviewing this guy named Danny. And it was Jeff, my boss, myself, and Danny. And we were trying to, show Danny the city and everything. And one of the places that people like to go to is the casinos. Now, the casinos, I was told, they're on boats. And the reason being is in St. Louis, you can't have casinos on land. You have to have them in the water. So we go into this casino. Oh, actually, we go into the lobby area of where the ship is. And I was trying to say, I really don't want to go on a boat and blah, blah, blah. And they have a guy that stands there with a rope. And they have a sign that says boarding times. And I'll never forget this. The next boarding time was something like 8:30. And we're standing there waiting. And the whole time I'm trying to talk myself into, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. And I said, where does this boat go? And he says, it just goes around. It's not a bad ride. And I said, okay. And I finally went on. And they closed the ropes off. And they don't let anybody else on. So like waiting for the ship to shake, and nothing ever happened. And I was so happy. I sat down, I started playing some blackjack, and then I asked the dealer, I said, what time does the ship dock? And he says, well, usually they board like every half hour. I said, so in a half hour, more people come on and we go off? He says, you can stay as long as you want. But he says, I got to tell you a little secret. And I said, what? He says, you do realize we're not on a boat. And I said, what? He says, yeah, we're on a barge that happens to be in the water. And the reason you don't feel anything is because we're not moving. So according to the laws in Missouri, it had to be the facade as a boarding of the boat in order to get away the legal stipulations. But it was a barge, and it was on the water, and it was so heavy that there's no way it moved. That's how freaked out I was. And I felt like such a schmuck when the guys say, we're not going anywhere. We're not moving. That's why you don't feel anything. So that's my, I was thinking about this all weekend, and I don't know why, but it came up, and I just wanted to tell you that story. I hope you are having fun laughing at me right now. And it's okay. I don't have a problem with you laughing at me, but, sometimes things in life aren't exactly what they appear to be. It's kind of like impeachment. And I got to tell you, each one of us should be praying that this doesn't happen. And let me explain to you why. Because for 8 years, we sat silent while President Obama literally divided our nation. I mean, he used identity politics, he used race warfare, he used class warfare to divide us, every one of us. And then he thrust that universal health care upon us. We didn't do anything. We sat silent. In the meantime, Hillary and Obama let 4 Americans die in Benghazi while they were watching on closed-circuit TV. Again, we were silent. We watched Hillary and Donna Brazile rig a primary against Bernie Sanders. Donna Brazile gave Hillary Clinton the questions to a debate before the debate actually happened. We saw Bill Clinton and Loretta Lynch, remember her, the Attorney General at the time, sit on a flight, on a plane, only to find out that Hillary was exonerated for any crime regarding her acid-washed, bleach-bit server and 33,000 deleted emails. Again, we were silent. And we've watched our duly elected president harassed each and every day for the last 3 years. Even though he has put millions of people back to work, he brought jobs back to America, he stood up to our adversaries, he fought like hell to protect our borders, and now we see Joe Biden leveraging $1 billion American dollars for his son, Hunter. And the Democrats and the media only care about impeaching the president. So I can tell you with the utmost certainty that if you're successful in your witch hunt, we're not going to be silent anymore. You will see a revolution you cannot even fathom. I'd also like to add a personal note here. We will show our strength at the polls by voting in people who truly represent us, the people, those who love God, our country, and more importantly, each other. I mean, we have literally no clue as to how crooked our recent elections have actually been. And so far, we're not doing a damn thing about it. I mean, California and New York, with their sanctuary city status, and they're letting illegal aliens vote and get free medical treatments and medications, which cost you and me and every legal tax-paying American some of their tax money, which translates down the road to retirement money. I mean, how long is it going to take for the stupid people to wake up? And by the way, who do you think is footing the bill for the living quarters, the food, the transportation, the medication for all these invading illegal aliens? You are. I am. It's about time that we stood up, take a stand together, and protest all of the corruption that's taking place right in front of us and the treasonous acts against our president. Things will never change until we show unity against the enemy. Please tell your friends, grab your friends. And it's so obvious it's not even funny. You know, yesterday I was looking at the Obamacare website, just thinking if maybe something changed. And I was looking for plans for myself. And the minimum plan that applied to me was $1,200 a month. Who can afford $1,200 a month for insurance? And by the way, that included a $10,000 deductible. Are you out of your freaking mind? What they've done is they've ruined insurance for everybody. And yes, you could get a plan that costs you a lot less money if you are applicable for, I guess they call it tax breaks or incentives that come along with it. But I'm not in that category, so that doesn't apply to me. And if it applies to me, it probably applies to you too, and it's very scary. Yesterday, speaking of the president, he once again threatened to pull federal aid from California, which has been battling a series of fires. I feel terrible for these families again. And so far, there's been like 77,000 acres that have been burned. But Trump's threat prompted a response from the California governor, Gavin Newsom, who mocked Trump for not believing in climate change. What does one thing have to do with the other? This is not climate change that made these fires happen. So the Trump tweet was yesterday morning. I'm quoting, "The governor of California, at Gavin Newsom, has done a terrible job of forest management. I told him from the first day we met that he must clean his forest floors regardless of what his bosses, the environmentalists, demand of him. Every year as the fires rage and California burns, it's the same thing. And then he comes to the federal government for money. No more." And then the governor actually shot back at the president on Twitter. He says, "You don't believe in climate change. You are excused from this conversation." I mean, where is the respect for the office of the president? I mean, what happened? Where did we take this turn in such a bad way? And, you know, talking about the 8 years with President Obama dividing us, isn't it funny that the Black Lives Matter movement is nowhere to be seen? What happened? Where'd they go? And all those different protest groups. It's really scary if you think about it. And speaking of scary, there's an attorney that's representing the whistleblower in this whole impeachment thing. And And they say now that his client, this attorney said, his client, who's the whistleblower, is willing to answer questions from Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee without going through the committee's Democrats. So the lawyer contacted the committee's Devin Nunes over the weekend to say that his client is up for answering questions from Republicans under oath and with penalty or perjury if Republicans submit those questions to the legal team representing the whistleblower. Are you kidding me? So under the proposal, the Inspector General could verify the whistleblower's identity but allow him to remain anonymous. Nunes didn't respond to the proposition. The lawyer says the whistleblower wants to do this to ensure his concern is addressed in a nonpartisan manner. So what we're waiting for now, it's going to be very interesting to see how Republicans respond to this. I mean, they should push for a live appearance with this guy. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but they should. Because this has just gone, like everything else, way, way too far. It's so disheartening that somebody can actually say something and then do something without knowing who it is. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. Steve Easterbrook, the CEO of McDonald's, he's out of work today. The company's board voted to oust him for poor judgment involving a recent consensual relationship with an employee. This came out yesterday, late in the day. Now, the president of McDonald's said Chris Kempczynski has been named the new CEO effective immediately. He's also going to be on the board. The company said that he succeeds Steve Easterbrook, who was separated from the company following the board's determination that he violated company policy and demonstrated poor judgment involving a recent consensual relationship with an employee. I guess the board of McDonald's had to, they didn't think that Easterbrook deserved a break today. Sorry, couldn't resist that. I mean, think about it, though. How can you have a relationship with your employees in the climate that we're in today? I mean, anything and everything that used to be okay is no longer okay. So, there was another mass shooting over the weekend. It was at a party in California, left 4 people dead, multiple others injured. The shooting had occurred at a large house in Orinda, California. It's about 8-9 miles east of Berkeley. The party was advertised on social media as an Airbnb mansion party, so 100 people showed up. Then the shots were fired. So far, police have released no details about a suspect or suspects. And you might recall just a few days earlier, 3 people were killed at a Halloween party in Long Beach, California. I mean, these days, you gotta have your guard up, and anytime you're around a lot of people, especially. Interesting thing happened on Fox News yesterday. A former Navy SEAL had the last word on Fox News on Saturday, and he randomly brought up the allegations that convicted sex offender and billionaire Jeffrey Epstein did not die by suicide. This guy is the founder of the Warrior Dog Foundation, Mike Ritland. He's a military dog expert. And he stumped the Fox News host, Jesse Waters. I mean, totally got him off guard. So he was speaking on Waters World. Is it Waters or Waters? I don't know. And they were talking about Conan, the heroic dog that helped U.S. troops take down the ISIS leader Baghdadi in the special ops raid in Syria last week. And at the end of the interview, he asked if he was allowed to give a public service announcement to viewers. And he said yes. So he says, if you see the coverage and you decide, I want one of these dogs, a straight-faced Ritland says into the camera, either buy a fully trained and finished dog from a professional or just don't get one at all. That and Epstein didn't kill himself. And then the host was, he looked like a deer in headlights. He didn't know what to say. And just after that, the words sunk in to the host, and his eyes lit up and he laughed off the comment. But you see, here's the thing. Ritland's comments came after that bombshell interview last week with that former pathologist, a forensic pathologist, Dr. Michael Baden, which was on Fox and Friends, where he shared his conclusions about the suspicious nature of Epstein's death after the financier was discovered dead in his cell back on August 10th. He was hired by Epstein's brother and present at the autopsy, and he shared the findings that are more consistent with homicidal strangulation. So The current chief medical examiner in New York, Dr. Barbara Sampson, declared that she stands firmly behind her findings. She says, our investigation concluded that the cause of Mr. Epstein's death was hanging and the manner of death was suicide, and we stand by that determination. I mean, Epstein supposedly died alone while on suicide watch on August 10th inside his cell at the Metropolitan Correction Center in Manhattan. The pedophile at the time was awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges involving underage girls. Now, the officials say he hung himself to the bedsheet from the top of his bunks, but come on. And by the way, speaking of the dog, Conan, the military canine that was injured while chasing down the now dead Baghdadi, should be awarded a Purple Heart for her heroic act despite being ineligible for the highly prized military decoration, according to several combat veterans. One said, do I believe Conan should receive a Purple Heart for actions on target? Absolutely. That's former Army Ranger Michael Bollinger saying that to the New York Post. He says they're out there with us every step of the way. James Knuppenberg, who was awarded a Purple Heart after a sniper shot him in Kandahar, concurs with Bollinger, and he also said to the Post that Conan deserves the medal. And you may remember that earlier this week I told you President Trump announced that Conan would visit the White House and shared a meme of himself awarding the heroic dog a Medal of Honor, which prompted the established media to whip itself up in a fury. I mean, it's actually funny if you think about it, because Conan the dog knew about the mission. Nancy Pelosi couldn't be trusted. But in all reality, and all kidding aside, the dog is more patriotic and more American than almost every Democrat in Congress, and certainly more than the House Democrats. I've never seen a group of people so filled with hate for actual Americans and so full of love for terrorists and illegal aliens and the media propagandists who push their leftist agenda every single day, especially the Democrats' treasonous coup attempt for this so-called impeachment. But the entire narrative is collapsing as these so-called witnesses contradict each other, and it becomes clear that there are still leftist spies working in the White House. I mean, all Pelosi succeeded in doing on Halloween was handing Trump a 2020 election victory, including the Senate and House. Bad girl, Nancy. Bad girl. Good girl, Conan. Good girl. I'm sorry. You see, I told you I didn't get enough sleep, so it totally screws with me. Hope you enjoyed today's broadcast. I appreciate you being here. You want to reach out, 305-707-7878, 305-707-7878. That's my personal cell, so feel free to text me, or you can call and leave a message. You can also contact me from my website, richstevensshow.com. Have a great Monday. It's going to be raining here in South Florida on and off, so probably just like the weekend. Maybe I'll just go back to bed. I appreciate you listening. Have a great Monday.